Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and when it comes to making a movie, there is one absolutely undersung hero of the entire industry, and that is the extra. Not getting paid that much and standing around for hours and hours upon end is something that the extra puts up with in the day-to-day. But unfortunately, as you can imagine, sometimes they have to put up with a hell of a lot. So let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 movies that put their extras through hell. Number 8. Extras were burned with fireballs and flaming arrows. Unconquered. The 1947 historical epic Unconquered was, at the time, one of the most expensive films ever made. Director Cecil B. DeMille was known for his lavish productions that usually cost a pretty penny to produce, which explains how he was able to pay for around 4,000 extras to take part in this shoot. Unfortunately though, not all of these extras had a rollicking good time on the set. In fact, for some of them, things got a little too hot to handle, and I mean that quite literally. During a massive battle scene in the movie, the director, in a Christopher Nolan-esque desire for unparalleled realism, opted to use hundreds of real fireballs and flaming arrows. These rained down on the actors like some sort of fiery plague, and as you'd expect, quite a fair few people were caught in the crossfire. In particular, 9 extras were injured, 8 of them suffered painful burns to the skin, and 1 of them had their hair burned clean off. Luckily, nobody's life was seriously threatened, and in the end the movie was nominated for the Best Special Effects Academy Award. The director's vision was certainly dangerous, but it did make for a spectacular visual showcase back in the day. Number 7. A group of extras fell out of a moving truck. Valkyrie. 2008's Valkyrie is one of those rare Tom Cruise movies that few people actually remember, even though it's actually pretty good. It tells the real-life story of German officer Klaus von Stauffenberg, who was a central figure in a mutiny who would see the German army assassinate Hitler and then seize control of the country. Being a period piece, the movie required the use of all of the era-appropriate trimmings like cars, costumes, weapons, and it was because of some of this old equipment that the film ultimately received a lawsuit involving a disgruntled group of extras. During filming, 11 extras dressed in Nazi uniforms were riding in the back of a World War II troop carrier when suddenly the vehicle turned a sharp corner. Now at this point, the side of the truck detached and the extras were flung out, sustaining injuries like broken ribs and pulled ligaments when they hit the ground. They were quickly rushed to hospital, where one of them was kept in for several days due to the possibility of severe internal injuries. This incident led to the extras suing the studio for $11 million, claiming that the filmmakers knew that the trucks were unsafe, yet did nothing to prevent the accident. Number 6. Extras were stung by scorpions and bitten by snakes. The 10 Commandments. Cecil's back again, baby. This time he wanted his film to be lush, extravagant, and thrilling, and considering that this is his second appearance on our list with, let's face it, 1 more to go and you know which one, he clearly didn't mind putting some extras in harm's way to get there. His 1956 drama The 10 Commandments was no different, with countless extras suffering some pretty nasty injuries throughout the course of production. In one incident, the director used 10 wingless aeroplanes to generate a real sandstorm, which caused a nearby extra to trip in his efforts to escape the blast, which doesn't sound too bad at first, right? But unfortunately, the extra happened to be carrying a burning torch, and when he fell, he set the girl in front of him on fire. To make this sequence even more of a nightmare to film, an unforeseen side effect of the man-made sandstorm was that it disturbed nearby critters like scorpions and snakes. These scorpions then proceeded to bite many of the extras working on the scene, and one particularly unlucky extra was nibbled by an Egyptian cobra, a creature whose venom has the potential to kill. Number 5. Many extras were injured while shooting the sinking scene. Titanic. Titanic was a grueling shoot for almost everyone involved, whether you're talking about star Kate Winslet catching hypothermia and nearly drowning, or 60 of the cast and crew falling ill after eating chowder that was laced with PCP. Most relevant to this list though, countless extras were put through the ringer when the time came to shoot the movie's climactic sinking scene. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Over 100 extras and a further 100 stunt performers were called in to bring this sequence to life, with director James Cameron wishing to capture the chaos of all of those helpless passengers scrambling for safety. And when you have that many people on a moving set, well, there's bound to be a few accidents. And sure enough, there were. Injuries were sustained by extras ranging from ruptured spleens to a fractured cheekbone, with broken ankles and cracked ribs thrown in for good measure. Fortunately, computer-generated people were used a lot for the more dangerous work, but not before dozens of performers had battered their bodies in the name of Cameron's cause. Number 4. Extras were thrown down a pyramid that was covered in sandpaper. The woman God forgot. Here he is again, the MVP of our list, Cecil. And what horrors is he inflicting on his poor actors this time? Well, just stay tuned and find out. Towards the end of his 1917 silent film, The Woman God Forgot, there's a scene that required a bunch of extras to be tossed down the side of a prop pyramid. Now that might not sound too reckless at first, but remember this was 100 years ago and the standards of safety and craftsmanship weren't what they are today. You see, the pyramid had been built out of wood and covered in paper, and upon this paper, sand had been glued upon it to give the appearance of real stone. So when the extras slid down it, they were scraping against sandpaper the entire time, and you can imagine how painful that must have been. Clearly aware that the pyramid slide would injure those who used it, a member of the crew stood at the bottom with a bucket of iodine ready to patch up the extras. Ooh, what a job. Number 3. Extras were locked in train cars and forced to urinate on the tracks. Joker. You'd think that extras being treated like dirt would be a thing of the distant past, right? But sadly, 2019's Joker proved that this is not the case. When the Joaquin Phoenix-led comic book adaptation was in production in October 2018, it was reported that several extras were locked inside subway cars for 3 hours while a lengthy sequence was being shot. These extras were supposed to be let out for a break after 2 hours of work, but they were denied this right. As a result, they couldn't go to the bathroom, and some were forced to urinate on the tracks. One of the extras involved filed a complaint with their union, which then sent a representative to the set to monitor the situation. Thankfully, the issue was then resolved, whatever that means, and Warner Brothers claimed it was looking into what happened. By all accounts, the production of Joker went pretty smoothly, or at least as smoothly as hectic, high-profile Hollywood movies can get. So it's pretty bizarre that such a major incident of neglect was allowed to take place, especially considering that this movie was backed by one of the most respected film studios in the world. Number 2. 3 extras drowned under 600,000 gallons of water. Noah's Ark. Nowadays, it's easy to create torrents of water using CGI, but back in 1928, such a luxury wasn't obviously available. While filming the climactic flood scene in his movie Noah's Ark, director Michael Curtis was forced to use hundreds of thousands of gallons of the real stuff, turning the production of this disaster movie into something of a disaster itself. When watching this scene, you can see all of the extras panicking and actually scrambling for safety. It looks pretty damn realistic, and that's because not all of them were actually acting. The sheer volume of water was so overwhelming that there was a very real risk of death for those involved. 3 extras are said to have drowned, while many more suffered serious injuries, including a leg that needed to be amputated. Still, throughout everything, the director kept his cameras rolling, even going so far as to shout directions at the sea of terrified people in front of him. The only good thing to come out of this biblical screw-up was that Hollywood promptly created new safety regulations for movie stunts. The scene might look great on film, but it came at a cost that simply wasn't worth it. And number 1, countless extras and other crew members were injured or killed. Fitzcarraldo. Speaking of disasters, it's hard to believe that 1982's Fitzcarraldo even made it to the screen considering its tumultuous production. Over 1,000 extras were roped into work on the film, in which an enormous 320-ton steamship was carried over a hill for real without use of CGI or special effects. As you can imagine, that was a pretty difficult task to pull off, and many members of the cast and crew pushed their bodies to the limit in order to get it done. Several extras died after catching diseases, likely as a result of the remote jungle environment that the film was shot in. A further 5 people were critically injured and 1 paralyzed in the aftermath of 2 separate plane crashes. The production was even attacked by local tribespeople, resulting in one man taking an arrow to the neck and his wife requiring 8 hours of surgery after being hit in the stomach. Oh, and by the way, that's not even all of it. A Peruvian logger was bitten by a deadly snake, so he chopped off his leg with a chainsaw to stop the spread of its venom. Like Noah's Ark, Fitzcarraldo is an impressive film that just wasn't worth the trouble it took to make. 40 years on, it remains one of the most dangerous film sets in the history of cinema. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 movies that put their extras through hell. I hope that you enjoyed that, and let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules, so you can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I do all of my streaming and Warhammer battle reports outside of work, if you're into that sort of thing. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. In life, sometimes we can feel like we too are an extra, background character in the greater scheme, but I promise you, my friend, you are the main hero. You deserve love, happiness, and success, so treat yourself like the hero I know you are, you massive ledge. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.